In map consciousness, we see higher values and we see the old values as valueless. When we see those higher values, we want to create in terms of those values, and that's what creates a new world. So again, the most fundamental thing is seeing. And I was thinking about how we can be walking and trip over a rock and be tripped up by something we didn't see. And I feel like thoughts are like rocks in consciousness. They trip up consciousness, yet we don't see them. We don't really see the thoughts. We don't really see what the thoughts are doing. And we don't even see that we're tripping over them. We're tripping on them. We're having a bad trip. Consciousness came here to energize the entire brain, not just a few linear thought structures. It came to see the whole field of the world, not just the field of thought. It seems that the ego localizes consciousness. So I had the experience of being a bird flying south, and I could feel the flock all around me. And my consciousness went other places as well, and then it came back and was localized again. So it could just be that when the ego is really gone, then consciousness becomes non-local and can go anywhere. So it has to come back. It has to almost choose to come back, because consciousness decided to go and be a bird. It could have stayed that bird. I feel like matter could be scar tissue of the light world. So there's the light body realm, and we're trying to shed the world of matter, which is a phenomenon of consciousness, which I feel is more created when sound interacts with gravity. It's like the ego is a vortex of sound that traps consciousness. It's almost like a sound wave. We think of a wave going like this. But if the wave is also traveling on the other axis, then it would actually be more like a funnel. And so this funnel is what traps consciousness and puts the attention on that sound, on that thought stream, and then projects that into reality and gets us to pay attention to that, to pay with our attention to that thought, as opposed to what's actually happening right there in front of us. And the ego that traps consciousness with this sound wave is what also warps our center of gravity. Partially, it warps our center of consciousness. It creates a center of consciousness instead of consciousness being a locus that we don't control. This sound wave is partially what warps our eye muscles, and that is what gets our attention put in the wrong direction. We're perceiving our inner images on our mind screen as opposed to receiving the entire impression of the light of the universe coming into our eyes. So this consciousness being trapped by thought, by sound, is what warps the light coming into our eyes, and this thought, sound, consciousness wave is what creates the image on the inside on our mind screen as the light comes in, as opposed to having the light come in unaffected by thought. And when it comes in unaffected by thought, we see what's actually there right in front of us, and we can act on what's there in front of us instead of reacting to what's there on our mind screen, which is in front of our lens in terms of it's in our eyes, it's in our brain, it's on our mind screen, and that is what warps what's coming in. We don't see what's coming in. And then if we don't see what's coming in, we can't give voice to what's coming in. And I'm not sure, but I feel like enlightenment is just seeing with a clear mind screen and giving voice to what one sees, which is connection, which is relationship, which is patterns, which is processes, not things and separation and division and judgment and opinion and the me, which is a sound separating itself from the light, instead of the light coming in and creating sound, which is a celebration of the light that's coming in, because it's actually what's coming in. It's not being distorted and warped by the neural networks of the ego. So does consciousness get filtered through thought and energized thought, which warps the brain, which gets the dopamine brain forming to such extremes, or does it get channeled like roots into the whole brain? So when we have this inner sound of the ego happening, it's like this inner mouth that we have. And it's talking in our head all the time. And each time it says something, it's like it opens the valve and lets that sound through. And when that sound's coming through, the light comes through and creates the image based on the sound. And it can't allow the light to come through that valve and then actually give voice and create the sound. So that stream of thought is preventing the stream of sound as thought is creating the image and is preventing the stream of light to come in and create the sound. So it's a voice and a perception reversal process, and it's confusing. It takes a while to get used to perceiving and speaking in this way. It's giving voice to what we see, seeing connection, instead of giving voice to what we me, the division. We use sound to separate ourselves from everything else, and then we live in a bubble of our own sound. And I'm wondering about map consciousness. I said in a recent video to myself that map consciousness gives us gifts. I'm wondering if it gives us gifts or if it just removes the impediments, the false elements that have been added to us over time, and reveals the gifts we already had. So this way of perceiving is natural. We already had it. So it's not necessarily a gift. It's just removing that which is blocking that original ability, that original innate ability of being a human being. And if the ego voice is making us tense, and then when we go through map consciousness, that relieves some of the tension, and then we're able to sing, for example. Well, had we never been tensed up from the ego, we might have been able to sing all along. So thought is touching the past. Thought is being in touch with the past while being in the present, and thus the present moment is distorted by the past. I remember when I was first in map consciousness 6 years ago, I thought of a concept called see-minders instead of reminders, meaning what I was talking about before, leaving something out as a reminder to do something, as opposed to putting it on a to-do list. This can't be done with everything, but some things it can. And I feel like it at least prompts the visual field to pick up on what is around us. If we have the same thing sitting there all the time, we're not going to see it. But if we move something, if we put something close to another object that we know we're going to go near, then we'll see it and we'll remember to do it at that time. And so in this way, we allow our natural relaxed attention to see things. So if we were going around with a pinhole focus all day long, it would be unlikely that we would actually see that thing that we put out to remind ourselves of something. But having that thing out, it starts to train our visual field to look for our reminders. It's a subconscious process. And it actually works on distraction, on non-focus. So if I'm focusing in terms of thinking, and then I see that thing, I just got distracted, but in a good way, because I probably saw it at the right moment that I needed it, and I probably saw it right when I was sort of intending to see it based on where I put it. And it also works on seeing connection and relationship. So in order to put it somewhere where I know I'm going to see it later, I have to see the relatedness of the thing I'm going to put it beside. So I might put it beside my keys because I know I need it for when I'm going out. And we already do this. It's just a matter of being aware of expanding this process as a way to be able to have more attention in the visual field and realize actually that our relaxed perception will pick out exactly what we need at the exact moment we need it. And once this is done in the visual field of actual objects, when we're able to relax our focus of thought to the point we're not actually thinking anything at all, as soon as we need something in terms of a thought form, it will arise in consciousness. We think we have to have this stream of thoughts to actually remember stuff, but we can put things in our visual field, and then we can actually do the same thing inside, which is have a completely empty consciousness and realize that very slight thought forms arise right when needed, and they actually arise even more effectively and efficiently when needed when we don't have this stream of thoughts going on. So some people might go out the door and forget the keys to the office, and because they're thinking about something else. Whereas if imagine the same person has a completely empty mind, they might be actually holding the door handle to open the door to leave, and it arises in mind that they forgot their keys. So remaining on the same track prevents this distraction from happening, this unfocusing, this zooming out that happens. When we zoom out, we can actually see the whole field, and seeing the whole field is more powerful than being zoomed in to a thought form stream of words, of abstractions. Those are the real distraction. It's creating one track. And that in that one track we can't see. So it might be good to set up one's environment in order to be able to see. This is sort of like what Krishnamurti talks about with choiceless awareness. Having a track that we're following in terms of thought is a choice. In that it's a direction, it's a path, it's a focus. When we're not focusing, things arise. And now if something arises that we decide we desire, well, we just chose that, and now we're focusing on it, and we're no longer in choiceless awareness. And I feel like when something arises, one can either act on it or it acts on you. So it might be something that I need to act on. It just arises out of nowhere that I need to grab something for work. And then I go and do it. Or I have the same choiceless awareness, relaxed perception, and I have an insight into something. And I can give voice to it. Or I can write it down, or I can just forget about it. I definitely don't remember much of what I say. So the thing about C-minders is having the thing itself remind us instead of a word about the thing. So putting out the nail clippers as opposed to writing on a piece of paper, cut nails. It gets the brain moving toward direct perception and action. And action when it's perceiving that that's the moment to do it. And I feel like when we're giving voice to some of the things we see that are out there that other people can't see, so-called hallucinations and delusions, we're not actually talking about our hallucinations and delusions, we're talking about a place in consciousness. We're talking about a level of consciousness and what that level of consciousness creates. We can see what it creates because it's the vision reversal process. We can see from that level of consciousness and project the pattern of what that will create. And we can already do that to a certain extent We already try to predict things. We already try to manipulate things. So yeah, I'm going to the hair analysis appointment, and I might do a video after. I'm not sure.